even though I've already done a video on the topic, and maybe some would think it's a little too soon to talk about it again. Yeah, go figure. I do another video, 2 in a row, on a topic that some may not consider important, which, yes, there are more important things, but considering entertainment is what I know best and do best at, I think talking about the importance of preservation of art is important, considering under this capitalist hellscape, it feels like we're living in the very reality of many sci-fi stories that were written in the 60s to the mid 80s. We're in that reality now, and it's much worse than, because when we read sci-fi stories like Blade Runner or Black Mirror or, God forbid, 1984, it's far worse, the reality we're living in, than what we read from stories. And I think what makes me angry when it comes to the destruction of physical media is the destruction of art itself. There's video games that you cannot buy anymore. And yes, you can emulate them, but anything past Super SNES and Genesis could be extremely difficult, and it could vary from system to systems. GameCube is relatively easy to emulate, but PlayStation and PlayStation 2 could be a pain in the ass to emulate, and not all games will run well on an emulator. These games, as an example, I don't have the third installment. I'm not made of money. Do I look like it? I luckily got these games when they were cheap enough to buy, when I had more disposable income than I do now. It's not likely anytime soon we're going to see a release of these games. If there's no market demand, or the companies don't see it, or rights issues regarding AIP, it's dead. It might as well not exist. That's the future of video games. Even though there's a lot of these, every installment except 2 of the King of Fighter games, you can't find them. Actually, well, you can get them digitally, but you're not actually physically owning the game. But this game is not available. Well, there are some rights issues, again, licensing. In the Japanese PSN store, I believe you were able to purchase it at one point. And as someone that's a fan of Mortal Kombat, I do have Deadly Alliance. I just don't know where it is at the moment. Yes. Though I don't think we're going to see a collection of these games anytime soon. And honestly, that's what we have to depend on nowadays to play classic games. Well, for older games, it's easy because Super Nintendo and Genesis, like I said, you could just look up the emulator, look up the ROM, put it in your whatever setup you use, and you could just pick up and play. If you have a controller, you could set it up so you could play with whatever controller you prefer to use, and you're good to go. So Super Nintendo and Genesis, and anything below them are easy to emulate at this point. It's when you go beyond that, it's when you run into difficulties. If you want to play a game in their original state, before patches, before they change certain things, you can only do it if it's physical. Examples. In Fire Emblem Three Houses, the English voice actor for Byleth was replaced. And I'm talking about the male version of Biolif. Now, Biolif is a silent protagonist for those who've never played the game. By the time I actually played Three Houses, his voice actor was already changed. The original voice actor is still in the game's code. You just can't access it. Now, it's not a big deal because it's just like some grunts and some lines when the character levels up or does something. The very fact is, you cannot hear the original voice performance for that version of Biolif without playing the launched version. And you cannot do that if you buy this game digitally. Now, this is a minor thing. It doesn't really matter. But there are games that are altered to a degree. Hell, you cannot play a fighting game in its pre-patch state anymore. So if you want to play a fighting game in its original state, well, you can't do that. I don't know why you would, but let's say you want to play Smash Ultimate. Let's say you want to play it without the DLC characters, without all the patches. The only way you could do that is if you were to have it physical. If you got it digital, you can't. Now, some of this stuff may not be a big deal to people, but depending on the kind of game you're playing, you cannot play the game in its original state, and some of it may be for the worst. On PC, you don't have this problem. Now, I'm not going to comment on PC as much because I don't have as much experience in that platform. If you want a physical version of Final Fantasy Pixel Collection, which is basically Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you can only get this. And this is a limited run physical version. This is one of the rarest games. This isn't mine. I'm just borrowing my copy my brother bought just to show a point. Because the original Final Fantasy games, the first 6, they're not easily accessible anymore. And there's a game that barely had any physical releases, such as Final Fantasy V. And Final Fantasy III, other than on the DS, never had an English version with a physical release. So if you want to play Final Fantasy III, this is the only way you're going to be able to play it physically. If you want a version of Cyberpunk with all the DLC that's you don't have to pay for, and you get it all in one package, this is a real physical game. This is not a key card. So anyone that spreads, every game on the Switch 2 is a key card, it clearly isn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Just fucking... Okay. If you do not see a key on the cartridge, it's not a key card. In the future, this will be the only way you're going to be able to have all the DLC of Cyberpunk physically. And it's on this. Now, here's a game that does not have a physical version at all, except on the Switch, too. Now, my brother imports games from PlayAsia, simple because it's actually cheaper than to buy them locally. Yeah, this game, if you wanted to get it on a full physical cart, this is it. Yeah, it may run at a lower frame rate, but for collectors or someone that wants a physical version, they'll be able to play it without being connected to the internet, this is a game you could just pop up and play. In fact, that's what gaming used to be. I know those who may watch me may not know what that's like. To simply put a game inside a PlayStation, whatever PlayStation, just name it whatever PlayStation console, PlayStation 3, 4, or 5, whatever one's your first, and just to pick up and play it. There was a time you were able to do that. And then there's games like this that won't get a re-release at all. Or if you want to play, or at least have a physical version of Ocarina of Time that's not on a cartridge, or you want to play Master Quest, yeah, I do have this. This is one of my rarest games. No, this is not just being on me flaunting my collection. This is just me show that there is a point. Or just you want to be able to play the God of War games that most God of War players these days have never played. Yeah, I don't have the actual case for this. This is God of War Origins, which is Chain of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. That is not available on modern platforms. Now, I got this at the time when I thought I was getting all 5 games, but all I got was God of War like 1, 2, and 3 on disc, and the rest of them were just on a code. Again, if you want to play the original God of War games, and yeah, speaking of which, I'll get back to this game later, because there is a point. Because I'm going to talk about gaming history more as I progress through this. A complete edition, which, yes, I have this on the Xbox One. And I think this is another reason I prefer physical, because if I want a complete version of a game, I have the entire game on a physical disc or cartridge for the example of the Switch, and I don't have to download the DLC. It's on the cartridge. Regardless if you think it runs worse or looks worse, it doesn't fucking matter, because I prefer to have everything. For me, as soon as I found out how shitty the definitive version of the God of... Sorry, this is Grand Theft Auto, which... How ironic. For the Grand Theft Auto trilogy, which might as well just call it that. Not wanting to be stuck with inferior versions of Grand Theft Auto and not liking the ugly look for these games, just to prove that I actually have them. Yeah, and I do have nostalgia for these games. It doesn't matter if they're great or not. That's not the point. The remaster destroys the aesthetic of these games. They look fucking hideous. Yeah, these games may not look the best, and they may, from your perspective, have aged like shit graphically. That's not the point, though. The point is, the aesthetic of the game was completely fucking ruined. Where it just look at these games on modern platforms. Just look at them. They're fucking hideous to look at. Grand Theft Auto has never had great graphics, at least before Grand Theft Auto 4. But at the very least, they had a style that was recognizable, and the remasters just look ugly as shit. Why would I pay for overpriced remasters when I already have these? And these were dirt cheap when I got them. And I'm getting to the end because I'm changing subjects, and I'm going to actually get back to the topic of God of War. I'm just making sure I have everything. Of course, and also going to talk about Mortal Kombat, because I think that's important. I get to that topic. All right. Of course, gaming history is important, because I need to talk about that. All right. As you all know, God of War months ago did announce there would be a remake of the original God of War trilogy. I wasn't excited like most people because for me it's like, why not just remaster these games and release them on modern hardware? Because God of War 3 is the only game you can play currently on PS5. Yeah, God of War 3. So if your introduction to series was 2018, how the fuck are you going to play the first two games and Ghost of Sparta and Chain of Olympus? Games that are essential to Kratos' story. Sony is doing what a lot of these companies are doing. They're going to remake the games and make the originals inaccessible. And I have nothing against the new God of War games. In fact, I actually loved God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. But I don't want the original games to play anything like them. And I feel like they were already fine as they were. And I played God of War 1 recently. It's like 21 years old. And when I play, it's like, God, this game is aged like fine wine. Why remake a game that is already perfect as it is? Yes, there's advancements in technology that has been a lot since then, but I'm getting sick and tired of, oh yeah, let's remake a game and make the original inaccessible, because that's one thing we're seeing all over the industry. And there's some games that I probably will never be able to play the originals because I don't have the money to track them down. And if I did, I'm not going to pay a premium for them. Speaking of remakes, Yakuza 1 and 2. Yeah, Kawari. They're some of the best games in this franchise. They're really good games. But the originals, you cannot find them. You cannot play them easily unless you own them or you have a Japanese Wii U and imported those versions from Japan. Otherwise, you can't play them. So there's a version of the game that's lost media, and there's an English dub for the first one that you cannot experience today without tracking down the original. And another thing, recently there was a Yakuza 3 Kawari, and if you wanted the original game, the original Yakuza 3, guess what? Unless you buy the remastered collection, you're not going to be able to get them. And I'm not joking. You're not going to be able to get them. Sorry, get the third game. And there's some side quests it cuts out. There's actual content that it cuts, which changes the vibe of the game. A character is completely removed. There is a trans character in the original that's removed. So if you want to play it, if you want to play the original without having those things altered, you can't just buy it separately. Not even on the digital storefront. You have to get it with 4. This is the benefit of physical media. Because you don't have to worry about losing it. Because I believe, and I'm not saying this because I'm a purist. God damn it. Okay, I'll worry about it later. Okay, I'm sorry. I look like an idiot doing this. I'm not doing this to be a purist or anything, but I personally think the original of games should exist along their remasters. And their, whatever, remakes, you know what I mean. But Sony, along with other developers, don't agree with that. They want to make the remake the default version. So you cannot play the original and erase the existence of the original. Now, for Yakuza 3, I mean, you may not care. Oh, it's just a side quest. It's just side content. It doesn't matter. It's still content that they cut. Okay, I'm trying not to rip the case. Oh yeah, another thing about the death of physical games. Okay, I'm not going to tear that apart. Is collector's editions, which I don't really care about that. Speaking of which, I'm going to talk about games that could be delisted in the future. Persona 4. Now, I have this on the Vita. Why does this matter? This is a game that didn't need to be remade. And now, with a remake coming out, and okay, the thing is, Atlas, of course, they're owned by Sega. They removed the vanilla version of Shikigami Tensei 5. So if you bought it along with the DLC, you cannot get it anymore. And it's completely irrelevant if Vengeance is better. It doesn't fucking matter. It's a game that they bought. If you bought it digitally, they took it from you. There was no upgrade path for it. You just had to fucking buy. You had to buy Vengeance again. And if you bought, let's say, vanilla now, the physical version, you could still play it, even though you'd have to deal with the shitty English dub. You could still play it. What incentive does Atlas have to keep this version of Persona 4 on the storefront, when they could just basically say, oh, Revival is better? Because I'm just going to say this game is always on sale. It's so cheap. You can get this game insanely cheap. And considering that with the death of physical media, they could just remove that, and the only way you're going to play Persona 4 is the remake. And speaking of which, another malpractice that's been done in gaming. I bet a lot of you didn't know there was a PS2 version of Persona 3. It was not a virtual novel. It was never intended to be. This version is considered inferior to its PS2 counterpart, not only in presentation, but it was basically a light novel, which is not something that Persona 3 was intended to be. Okay, why play this version when you could play this version? Okay, well, there's reasons. This version, yeah, they both have the same story, but the look of the game, the aesthetic of the game looks completely different. And some could argue the atmosphere feels different in the original version, and the remake neuters it and destroys this game's identity. This isn't like Final Fantasy VII, where the original version of the game has been accessible for like 20 years now, where it's so easy to get the game that I don't think the remake is ever going to erase the original's like relevance. But Persona 3's case, Atlas has no incentive to re-release this version. And yes, on PC, you could easily mod it, and I'm pretty sure in the future there will be a PC fan port of this game that will give it all the mods that it currently has already. But you cannot play that version anymore. The only way to play Persona 3 is this version, if you want to experience Persona 3. And if you want something closer to its original atmosphere and its original gameplay and soundtrack, it's this version. That it's a virtual novel, and the only reason to truly play it is to play the female protagonist, because that's unique content, but that's it. Of course, there's other examples I could name of gaming history being buried. Like if you're a Resident Evil fan, unless you have GOG, the original trilogy for Resident Evil is not easily accessible. And Capcom has the mentality, why would anyone want to play this? when people could play the remakes. Or you have a, and here's an example of why I value physical games so much. Now, I have the PS4 version of this collection, but the Cowabunga collection. We all know this will eventually be delisted. We all know this. Anything that is a license game is going to be removed eventually. So, unless you have a physical version, goodbye once they pull this from the eShop, or Sony's case, the PlayStation Network. There will be no easy way to get it. But then again, luckily for these games, they're so easily accessible through ROMs that you could find them easily. These were available at one point, but because these were available on the storefront at one point, but they were removed. Marvel vs. Capcom. This is the only collection that has all of them, and it has all of them in a cart. And these will eventually get delisted. It's going to happen. And when it does get delisted, unless you have a physical copy of these games, you're fucked. So yeah, at least with a physical version, you have these games. And then games that are dead on a dead platform, Mortal Kombat or Mortal Kombat 9. Even without the DLC characters, I feel like this is a complete experience. Unlike Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11, if you play only the base version of the game, this is a complete roster. There's a reason this is considered the best Mortal Kombat, and it's still not available on modern platforms. Or you have a collection of Mortal Kombat. Yeah, this is another thing. We need to stop relying on game developers to make collections, because they either are a broken mess like this was when it launched. If you play this collection, I didn't buy this, by the way. If you play this collection, the launch version, it's borderline unplayable. But at the very least, you could play them. Depending on feedback, I might do a further topic about movies and TV shows and why physical media is important. But I feel like this is a discussion we should have had sooner. Because as the clock gets closer to the death of physical media, at least for the gaming front, I have a question I'd like to ask the audience. Was it worth trading convenience for ownership? That's a question I'd like to know. Do you think trading convenience for ownership is worth it? Because to me, I never viewed digital as convenient. I have a shitty internet connection. I'm lucky if it works. And if I have a physical game, I could just put it in my Switch, actually, which I'm talking about as an example, and fucking play it. Not everyone has a high-speed internet connection. Not everyone is able to download their games fast. Some, it could take half a day to download a game. When I installed Final Fantasy VII, a remake on my Switch 2, it took 5 hours. That's not convenient. And I just don't get it how anyone can tell me that physical is inconvenient, but digital is not. I can put this in my PS2 and fucking play it right now. And I don't have to fucking worry about logging in. I don't have to go through some fucking bullshit. I could put this in my PS2 and fucking play it. It's like gamers just think that getting off your ass and putting a fucking disc inside a system is fucking a pain in the ass. It literally isn't. It's no wonder. It's no wonder we have fucking problems with fucking obesity in this country. And I know that's I'm am fully aware that I'm fucking fat, and I'm not going to say I'm not, but I'm aware enough to know. But at least I could get off my fucking ass and put a disc and a cartridge inside a system. It isn't that fucking hard. Like, yes, when it's done downloading, it could be more convenient. But if you're trying to buy a game, I don't see it as convenient to me. I really do not. And not to mention, the only reason I ever buy a digital game is if there's a sale. That's it. This is what we're trading ownership for. The illusion of convenience, because convenience, that's an illusion. It is not convenient. You only think it's convenient because you haven't actually thought about it. You don't think about those who don't have a high-speed internet, where it actually would be faster if they just actually bought the game physically. You only think it's convenient because you're privileged and you're speaking from your own experience. I could put this in my Switch 2 right fucking now, and not have to wait to play the goddamn game. The idea that digital is more convenient than physical is fucking bullshit. It's more convenient after it's done downloading, but not before it's downloading. I have a shitty internet. So is it more convenient for someone with no internet connection? Like, another thing that's more convenient about physical, you could sell it. If you want to get a refund, it's easier for physical than digital. Unless you are on PC, and this does not apply for if you game on PC. Because in PC you have options. You can get a refund, but on consoles, no. There's straw mans that are being thrown at us. Oh, you don't actually own anything, even if you own a physical copy. I could put these on my PS2 and play it whenever I wish. So I fucking do own it. I could put this on my PS3 and play it whenever I wish. So don't give me this. Oh, digital is inevitable BS. It's only inevitable because of brain dead idiots choosing to give up their ownership of their games for convenience. It's only convenient because you've let CEOs tell you that digital is more convenient. You've been brainwashed to think it's convenient. I'll take a physical copy any fucking day of the week. And of course, this is only scratching the surface. How many games like this are going to disappear? You could still get this game, as far as I know, on the digital front on the PlayStation 3. But you won't be able to soon. You're not going to be able to. And when that happens, and I do mean when that happens, you're fucked if you want to play that game. Because if you want to play it, you're stuck with this by default if you want to play something closer to the original aesthetic. If they remove this on any platforms, if you don't own the physical version, which these are extremely rare unless you were lucky to get these on with limited run games, you're screwed. So yeah, I don't know what to say. Stock up on any physical games that interest you as much as you can. I'd keep an eye out for whatever games you've thought about buying. If you haven't had a chance to build up a game collection, I would start doing that if you can. And if you don't care to do that, then I would at least invest into some form of third party like device that could easily emulate games, because the dark times are here, and we're not going to have any say at all. And I say the best way to rebel against this is to simply not buy anything new. At least that's the way I could say. I see, just to basically give a middle finger to Sony, to give a middle finger to Microsoft, and even Nintendo. The only way this will ever stop is if we make it stop. And it doesn't matter if this may be a losing battle. It doesn't fucking matter. The fact is, eventually, and Jason Unruh did bring this up in his video that he uploaded, they're going to aim for the subscription model. You think they won't? And if you think digital is horrible, and I'm saying this for certainty, right now, people are going to fucking wish people are going to wish purchasing a game digitally was an option, because they're going to make people nostalgic towards buying digital games. Because that's how bad this is going to fucking get. People are going to be nostalgic towards physical games in a few years. Wait until they introduce the subscription model. And we've been warning you about this for decades now. Gamers are going to get smaller and smaller, because those who could afford games are not going to be able to participate. I don't think they would want. We're going to feel like they lost anything. And yeah, I think the gaming industry deserves to crash. I have no faith it's going to, but whatever. If you have any games that you do want to get, that you've been on the fence of getting, I would do it. And just because there's newer versions of some of the games doesn't mean you should just, okay, let's not bother. Like, if you have a PS2, if you have a PS2, and you're interested in checking out Persona 3, and you're curious about the original, and you still own a PS2, I would grab this sucker. If you want to experience the original God of War games, and you're able to get a PS3 for a decent price, I would get the original God of War games, because I think they're going to get really fucking expensive. I think retro gaming is probably where I'm mostly going to be going. Stop depending on companies to re-release games. If you still have the ability to play them, fix up your PS2. That's the problem. I think that's the problem with nostalgia, is people really want to re-experiencing their past. If you still have your old consoles, like your PS2, PS1, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, etc., don't sell them. They still have life left. Because that's what they want us to do. These companies want us to get rid of all of our physical stuff. And I know those who are watching me have a long backlog of games. Why not actually dive into them? Because for me, I have enough games that I can play and replay for the next 40 years. And I'm not exaggerating. I have enough video games for 40 fucking years. I don't need these companies. And if I lose out on any new games that's going to come out after this generation, who gives a shit? Who really does? What? Because when the consoles are basically just shittier PCs, then I might as well just get a PC. Obviously, there is a benefit to both physical and digital, and I know physical is not a perfect way to preserve games. Obviously, it's not. Things could go wrong, obviously, but if you take care of your games, they can last you for your whole lifetime. But at least with a physical game, I could burn it on if I have the technical skills. I'm pretty sure there's tutorials how to do it, and be able to fucking play it by copying a disc. I could fucking do it. I could dump my ROMs. I could do whatever I want because these are my games. I don't care if I don't physically own the license. It doesn't fucking matter. I could do whatever I want. I could mod it. I could sell it. That is the whole point of ownership. And I make this no secret, and anyone who watches me know I am a communist, of course. And the biggest straw man against communists is we don't think people should own anything. That's bullshit. Because what I'm holding right here is my personal property. I think we should have complete ownership of the shit that we have. I know my Switch 2. I don't technically own it because Nintendo could kill it whatever they want with a kill switch if I decide to mod it. I know that. If in this capitalist hellscape you don't own anything, don't you fucking get it? They don't want you to own anything. They don't want you to entertain the very idea. They don't want you to have a house. They don't want you to own a house. The clothing that you're wearing, they don't want you to own that. These glasses that I'm wearing, they don't want me to own that. They don't even want you to have any bodily autonomy. They don't want you to actually. They want ownership of everything, including you as a person, mentally and physically. They want to own everything about you. Yeah, I know this is switching to something more serious, but I do mean this. Video games, yes, they're a luxury. But there's other aspects of our society where we're being affected by you own nothing. If you buy a house, you don't fucking own it. The government could take it from you. If you buy a car, you don't fucking technically own it. Like, the capitalists want to turn every single aspect of our lives into a subscription. Is this the whole point of us living, is to just to work, just to pay to continue on living? Because it feels like our entire lives, we're basically on a subscription service, and if we could not pay for it anymore, we can just fucking drop dead. When the government won't protect us from corporations, when our hobbies are no longer escapists, reactionaries will complain about, my wokeness is ruining everything. No, corporations are. Do you think wokeness has ruined gaming? Do you think wokeness has ruined the very concept of physical ownership? Has wokeness been the reason why we don't own anything anymore? Is wokeness the fucking reason why we have no say about anything? Like the worst fucking shit that the government forces down our throats and corporations, they're the same thing at this point. I'm not even going to fucking sugarcoat it. Look, we don't have a fucking say. like these AI data centers, which is a huge reason why the cost of everything is skyrocketing. They've always wanted to do it. They would have done it with or without AI data centers. And we have to fucking fork the bill. So we have no say if we want this shit. We have no fucking say. If we live in a true democracy, digital distribution would be probably vastly superior to physical. If everything was collectively owned, it wouldn't be an issue. It would not be an issue if digital was the primary option for games or movies or books or whatever. If we had protections that protect us from being exploited, but we don't fucking have that. The very fact is Sony can, and I'm using Sony as the example, could take shit that you bought with your hard-earned money. It only drives home that we don't own shit. Like, I'm fucking tired of hearing it from anti-communists that, oh, the communists don't want us to own anything. No, it's fucking capitalists that don't want you to own shit. I just want to fucking have a roof over my head. I just want to be left alone. I just want to be able to live my fucking life. And, you know, when I'm done working, maybe have some fun. But I can't do that. Because how is this hobby fun when I have to constantly think about, and I'm just speaking for, if I'm buying a digital game, is this really a good idea? How long will I have access to this game? I should have to think about that. Jesus Christ. The more this rant goes on, the longer the topic is completely changing. It isn't really changing. It's just... saying stuff, clowning on Sony isn't going to fucking change shit. Saying, I'm going to boycott you for not... and I'm never going to fucking buy anything you make again. Do you think Sony gives a shit about some angry people on social media, including this long rant that I'm doing? Do you think Sony cares? In their mind, you're going to do it anyway. You're going to buy it anyway. It doesn't fucking matter what we fucking think. The only effective thing we can do is to simply not participate. Not playing this fucking game. That's the most effective way we could win. Not basically crying and complaining about how unfair this is. That's not going to fucking work. If you have PlayStation Plus, cancel it. If you pre-ordered GTA 6, cancel it. Get a refund. The only way you're going to make a stand and do something that Sony will take seriously if you hit them in the bottom line. That's the only way. That is the only way you can legitimately fight back against these corporations. You're not going to fucking do shit. Sony feels emboldened. They really do when they see the data of the amount of people that buy physical games versus digital. And why would they not feel emboldened? I would. If I were a capitalist. This is what Sony wants. This is what Nintendo wants too. This is what Microsoft wants. None of these people are your friends. None of them. They may say things that may seem nice, but they don't care. All these brain dead fanboys, whether they're Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft, they just prove their point. These people at Sony, they look at these people and they hate us. They literally hate us. They don't care about us in any significant way. That we're just cogs in a machine. That's all we are. Things will get worse. under this late capitalist hellscape. It will get worse. Games will be more and more inaccessible to those of lower incomes. Those who live in areas where the internet is fucking garbage will no longer be able to play games. Unless they have a retro console, unless they get one of those bootleg gaming systems that has games up until whatever generation, they're not going to be able to play games. The thing is, it's so easy to emulate now. I'm pretty sure in China they have some machine that could probably play up till PS2. Because PS2 is what I care the most about. Because it's the hardest one for to emulate of the systems that I care about. Because that's the one, other than the Super Nintendo, I feel the most nostalgic towards. And I actually think another thing we could do is just play what we already have. Actually dive into our collections. You know, I kind of feel like when I think about it, I might go into further detail maybe in the future. All these sales that we get, I feel like that is the reason why the data they have is skewed, because they don't actually tell us why do so many people buy digital games. Because in a way, I'll probably talk about it in a future video, when you have sales, when it's so easy, that makes it convenient within itself. But conclusion, because this video has gone on for almost an hour. Stop Killing Games is actually a movement that's fighting for consumer rights, because this is beyond video games. They want to implement digital ID. And I do think that's going to be built into the PlayStation 6. Now, some of you may be too young to remember, there was a huge hack in 2011 that exposed people's credit card information. You could find a documentary on it easily on YouTube. And I think that is another reason they want to do away with physical games. Because by 2029, they want to implement digital ID everywhere. In order to use a gaming system, you're going to have to have a digital ID. Because what better way to control you than a digital ID? Let's say you say something that they don't like. Let's say, here's an example. What if let's just say you say something that goes against the government. Let's just say, there's a game developer that is from Israel that makes a video game. Oh yes. You think I wouldn't talk about Israel? And what if there's something in the clause that you're not allowed to talk about topics like Israel because it's divisive, and you talk about Israel, and you could get banned, your account banned, because people have been banned from Sony before and lost. That's another way you can lose your shit. So a way to control people is to discourage people from saying something that the company may not like. Let's say you criticize Sony. Let's say you do a YouTube video. Sony could look up your what you've said and basically use that as an excuse to terminate your account, which means you would lose access to all your games. That's another way they can control you. Because digital IDs, make no mistake, they will force it on us. That's another reason I think it's a good time to tap out of games. I'm not showing my fucking ID for a company like Sony that's had their servers hacked. And I can expose my fucking information to some person that will fucking rob me. Because that's the future, folks. That's the future. We have to submit our IDs, and be at the mercy of some hacker that could destroy our lives by stealing our financial information, or God forbid our social security number is on there. They don't care. Sony doesn't care. Nintendo will do the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised on the Switch too. There is something on there that will, in a future update, and I'm going to raise the alarm right here, that will force you to have a digital ID. I think the Switch 2 has it. It just hasn't been activated yet. Because this stuff is going to be forced on worldwide, all to protect a fascist apartheid state. I know the topic has been all over the place, but when you do a video for this long, it's bound to. Regardless how futile the fight may be, I still think it's worth at least trying to do what we can. And that's all we can do. But I do hope, for those of you who are not as politically educated, that you actually use this to motivate yourself to learn about how capitalism works. Because how the capitalists operate when it comes to video games is connected to other avenues. Digital ID, that's connected to Israel. Like if you look up all the rabbit holes of everything you hate about our modern society is connected to capitalism. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm not trying to convince you of something that you may not be convinced yourself. It's up to you to do the research. Just go on Marxist.org and just start from there. Like I probably would recommend starting with Marx, Lenin, Mao, and I forgot. Okay, I haven't read this in a while because forgive me. Marx does talk about the crisis of overproduction. You should read about that because that will give you some context for what is happening today. I'm not telling you to become a communist because you don't have to be a communist to oppose capitalism. You really do not. You don't have to be. But if you want to understand and have more context for why things are the way they are and why everything is going to shit, why it doesn't feel like we own anything anymore, you do have to understand how capitalism works. This was always going to happen under capitalism. We are in the end stage of capitalism now. First, it was movies and TV shows that became a subscription. And you do have various subscription models for video games, like Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, and Nintendo's model regarding retro games. And I do think Nintendo will gradually do it for their games too. And I do think how they're going to do it, how they're going to do the subscription model, I think they're going to do it gradually. I think they're going to make it seem like it's cheaper to play a certain game on a subscription service, and people who don't have the money to pay, let's say, $80 or $100 for a video game, will pay for the subscription because they want to play it. That's how they'll trap people. So that's how the next phase of you will own nothing, will be happy, will be implemented. Because game sales will be fucking all but dead, and they're going to gradually force people to do subscription services. So you're gonna get 10 years from now, assuming this country isn't a fucking smoking crater because of World War III, you're gonna have the same people who bought their stuff digital because they don't want to use a subscription service are going to be angry, just like those who are physical collectors, about having no control over their games. That's going to happen. And because Nintendo has already done it, so if you want to play their old catalog, you have to get their subscription. So if you want to play a game that from your childhood, whether it's N64 or GameCube, and eventually the Wii, you're gonna have to get the service. And I think Sony they're going to do that as well for their older catalog. That's how they're going to get us. The only way to fight back is to not participate anymore. To simply stop participating, that is the only way we're going to win. That's the only way. But unfortunately, there's not enough of us that will do it. But those who are willing to do it, we should do it, even if it may seem futile. Even if we're in the minority, fighting against a future where you will own nothing and be happy, I think is worth fighting for. Because they will push further and further and further. Of course, this could extend to other topics such as housing, etc. But this is about video games. We got to fight back against this in whatever way we can. Just buying physical media is not enough. We have to actively stop participating, because if we stop participating that is the best form of boycotting, is just not to participate at all. That's the only way. Will it happen? I don't know. Maybe America will happen and Sony will delay their plans of phasing out physical media, at least by 5 years, like they did with the backlash with the PS3 and Vita. But I doubt that's going to happen. But if it does, I will gladly admit that I'm wrong. But it's not going to change the fact, even if we succeed in the short term, the long term, they will eventually phase out physical media. And that is why I'm saying we can't just buy physical games. We have to stop participating in this bullshit entirely. That's the best way to fight back. Will we do it in enough numbers? I don't know. This video is not going to reach that many people. I know this. Hell, having this video be as long as it is may deter people from watching. This is my longest video I've ever done. I don't have anything more to say. If I continue, this is going to turn into a different kind of video. Instead of ending this with physical is forever, I'm just going to say this to end the video. The best way to win is to play. The best way to win is to participate. If we are going to win, we have to have the courage to simply say no. That's the only way. We have to say no. Something as simple as that. And that. No proclaim shit on social media about fuck you, Sony. I'm not going to buy anything from you again. It's not going to do anything. Refusing to participate in the ecosystem is the best way to stop Sony, or to hurt Sony as much as possible. Don't resubscribe to PlayStation Plus. Don't buy any new game from Sony on their storefront. That includes sales. And if you must continue to buy video games digitally, build a PC if you can. even if it takes a while, and you may have to save up for one, build a PC and go there. Not because on at least on PC you will have control. Because as long as we participate in this ecosystem, they win. We have to have a self-control. We have to have the discipline to simply say no. It is a hard thing to do something so simple, but we have to. If we want to have any ownership at all, if we want to help the movement stop killing games, we have to help them by not participating in the very destruction of our hobby, because that's what we're facing now. This hobby is not going to be accessible for many people in the near future. Those who don't have a good internet connection, they're fucked. If you have a disability that makes it difficult to play certain video games, you're fucked, because how are you going to be able to know if a game is good for you in terms of accessibility if you don't have the ability to get a refund? So the inability to get a refund is not going to exist. If you are of lower income, even if you have a decent internet connection, you'll be locked out of games because games will not go on sale as frequently, if at all. And that's the problem with those who just carelessly buy everything because it's more convenient. They don't think about the consequences and how that affects those who are of lower income. The selfishness and the self-indulgence and of gamers who have more money than sense have ruined it for everyone else. So, yeah. Long live physical games, as I said in the previous video. And the best thing to win against oh god, I'm losing my train of thought. The best way to win against Sony is to simply not participate. No empty fucking words on Twitter, or no saying I'm not going to do this. Actually, back up your words with action. Anyway, I have nothing more to say. Have a good night, everyone, and power to the people.